Hello. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most amazing women of the 16th century. Her name is little known outside the circles of Catholic recusants. Her name at baptism was Margaret Giggs. In marriage, she became Margaret Clement. She was the adopted daughter of Sir Thomas More. Now, she married in 1526 John Clement, who was a physician. He was the personal physician of Cardinal Wolsey. Because Margaret herself, as well as being taught Latin and Greek and the humanities by Sir Thomas More, she was taught along with More's own daughter, another Margaret. She excelled in medicine, and she was encouraged to study medicine, and so she married a medical doctor. They lived a very, very happy life around the More family. She educated lots of children nearby. Their home was buzzing, like Sir Thomas's home, with learning and song and happiness and devotion. She was privy to Sir Thomas's devotional life and charitable life. When Sir Thomas More was in the Tower of London, he called his daughter Margaret to him, and also his adopted daughter Margaret to him. These two Margarets were together when he said farewell. And it was to Margaret Giggs, Margaret Clement, he entrusted his acts of devotion, the penances that he did, the whips and scourges he used on his back, and the hair shirts he wore. She was the one who supplied him with these things. She even smuggled them into the Tower of London so he could do penance for the king in his cell. It was this Margaret Giggs, Margaret Clement, who was present at his execution on Tower Hill. None of the members of the family were there apart from her. She was able to take the hair shirt, which was left on the body. And these are the relics that have been passed down to us of Sir Thomas More to the present day. When things got rough for Catholics here, it was decided that she, her husband, and her children would escape the country. They would go into exile. And they went to the Low Countries, into what's now called Belgium. They lived in Malines, Brussels, and I think also in Louvain. And there they were very, very supportive of the other Catholic refugees in the country, many, many hundreds of them, who were able to flee the tyranny of the Protestant Revolution. And she harboured very, very many priests who came on their way back to England in order to keep the faith going, and very, very probably to come to martyrdom themselves. So she sits there as a daughter of a great man, of a saint. She sits there as the wife of a very eminent doctor, a great man in public life. She sits there as the mother of many children and the comforter and helper of many who were coming and going from this perilous realm. But it is another act of hers in particular that I want to talk about now. Like her father, Sir Thomas More, she was singularly devoted to the Carthusian order. And it was the Carthusian order, the contemplative order par excellence of the Church, that the fury of Henry VIII was directed. In the first part of the so-called Reformation, it was this order that was singled out. And on the 4th of May in 1535, 3 priors of Carthusian houses were executed, the first blood of the Reformation, and the first blood to water the seeds of the Catholic renewal. So the 3 priors were taken to execution the 4th of May, 1535, and yet the charter houses did not all collapse, and the London Charter House was strongest of all. And so again, the king executed more members of that house. That was on the 18th of May, 1537. And still, there were some members of the London House who would not capitulate. 10 of them, priests and lay brothers, were taken, the 3rd batch of martyrs from that house. And they were taken to Newgate prison, and they were put in chains. They were fastened tight, and there they were left to die of starvation, of disease, just being worn out by their imprisonment. But Mrs. Clement had other ideas. She disguised herself as a milkmaid with a great big bucket on her head, and she bribed the jailer to let her into the jail, and she went into the cell of the Holy Carthusians, and in the milk pail there was food, and she'd feed them as they were tied to the pillars. She'd feed them, and she would collect the waste. She would collect their filth and clean them as best she could. And then she'd slip out. And then King Henry said, "Are those Carthusians dead yet?" "No, sire, they're still going." "What's going on?" "Put a tighter guard on their cell." So Margaret couldn't get in. But not to be thwarted by someone like Henry VIII, she had other ideas. She went up onto the roof of the jail, and she took the tiles, the slates off, and she tied bits of food on a string and let it down to the mouths of the fathers and the brothers in the cell. And they tried their best to take some bites of what she was offering. But it was so perilous and so difficult that they couldn't really take very much at all. And although she kept coming back day after day to do the same, it wasn't long before those holy fathers and brothers died. Margaret and her family left England after the reign of Queen Mary. They'd left before and came back with Mary, and now they left again under Elizabeth. And they settled in Malines, Brussels, and her own daughter became, another Margaret, became the prioress of the Ursuline convent there for English nuns, the convent of St. Ursula in Malines. When Margaret was on her deathbed, her children were called to see her, and they all came. And Margaret Clement, who was the prioress, was rather delayed. So her mother, Margaret, said to the other brothers and sisters, "Will you tell her to hurry up? Because," she says, "because I see around my bed those holy Carthusian fathers, and they're asking me, they're bidding me to come away with them." As she came to die, those holy fathers and holy brothers whom she'd helped in life came to help her through the door of death into paradise. That's a very moving story. It fills our hearts with noble sentiments about our Holy Catholic faith, and it fills our hearts with noble sentiments about our little acts of charity, whether small or heroic. But all those good things that we've done and all those friendships that we've made in this life, they will help us through the door of death into the brightness of God's presence. May the example of Margaret assist us. May she pray for us. And may God's holy angels surround us, all our goings and our comings. And may they help us and all those whom we love, both in this world and the next.